our immigration policy does not serve our needs as a country. I have a guy who right now has a green card, and I won't say his name, who was helping run a $40 billion fund and can't become a citizen in the U.S. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
This is like a Yale
on top of the fact,
this is a Yale grad, right?
Right.
And then we have millions of people coming in illegally, right? I think the last count was over 7 million since Biden took office, which is greater than the population of 37 states. Not to mention the fentanyl that's coming in, right? So we have a massive. I mean, I was once with Kellyanne who made a really great point, and I've used the point, so I got to give her some author's credit for it, where she said, if a 747 crashed every single day in our country, we would stop all air traffic and we would solve that problem before we allowed another day of air traffic, right? And that's essentially what's happening at our southern border, right, with fentanyl. You have the equivalent of a 747 crashing every day with the number of people that are dying. So, when are we going to create a policy of immigration? And this goes for Cubans, for Haitians, for Mexicans, for anyone who's trying to get here, that serves our country.
This is obviously all connected also to the immigration situation, or I should say the illegal immigration situation, because as you pointed out, Miami is a great city of immigrants. I love the amount of people down here from different places and the foods and the languages. And I told you, I still got to work on my Spanish. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But we do have an illegal immigration problem. It's a little hard to tell where Florida fits into that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think
we've got a lot of water around us, which I think helps.
And I think when there was wet foot, dry foot, people were using the water more as a means of getting in. Once wet foot, dry foot came off, I think the Mexican border became the new frontier again.
Can you just explain what that is?
So wet foot, dry foot meant that if you were, let's say, Cuban or Haitian, it was Cuban, not for Haitian. It was only for Cuban people. If you made it to land, and this was a Bill Clinton policy, you were automatically eligible for asylum. So there was a huge incentive to risk your life, essentially, although they're risking their life on the Mexican border. But I mean, this is like 90 miles, no propulsion, right? Like risking your life. But once you made it to American soil, if you touched American soil, you were automatically eligible for asylum, and you were ultimately on your road to citizenship. Once that was taken away,
how did you feel about that as a Cuban?
It's interesting. I think for me, you have to sort of zoom out and look at the broader immigration conversation, right? Because I don't think, as a Cuban, we shouldn't necessarily have special rules per se. I think everybody should have an equal playing field, because everyone is getting here for reasons of desperation, right? I mean, whether it's political desperation, economic desperation, whatever the case may be. That's, by the way, part of what we need to address, right? I think as we look at the nearshoring debate and we think about depowering China, which has become a massive adversary, and we're giving them $400 billion, if not $600 billion a year of our money in the form of a trade deficit, right? And in the form of the IP that they steal from us on an annual basis. Why are we doing that? And why aren't we trying to reinforce, with our money, our allies, or create allies in the region? It's the kind of stuff that they're doing against us, right? In their investments, the one China policy, in sort of belt and suspension policy that they have implemented, right? Belt and roads policy. So, that's part of it. I think the other part of it is our immigration policy does not serve our needs as a country. I have a guy who right now has a green card, and I won't say his name, who was helping run a $40 billion fund and can't become a citizen in the U.S. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
This is like a Yale
on top of the fact,
this is a Yale grad, right? And then we have millions of people coming in illegally, right? I think the last count was over 7 million since Biden took office, which is greater than the population of 37 states. Not to mention the fentanyl that's coming in, right? So we have a massive. I mean, I was once with Kellyanne who made a really great point, and I've used the point, so I got to give her some author's credit for it, where she said, if a 747 crashed every single day in our country, we would stop all air traffic and we would solve that problem before we allowed another day of air traffic, right? And that's essentially what's happening at our southern border, right, with fentanyl. you have the equivalent of a 747 crashing every day with the number of people that are dying. So, when are we going to create a policy of immigration? And this goes for Cubans, for Haitians, for Mexicans, for anyone who's trying to get here, that serves our country, A. And B, we obviously have to be able to control whatever that is. And C, we obviously have to know who they are and vet them.
Yeah.
I mean, these are obvious things. I mean, these are things that are really
these are things that every Democrat believed 20 years ago.
Correct. And it's become a hyper-political situation. I do think that where Hispanics, and I'm using Hispanics as an example, where they come down in the 2024 election is going to be very important to this issue, because I think that they're breaking Republican. And I think if they are even or more, I think that no one will be able to use it as a political tool, right? That's my hope, is that it becomes demystified. And then what we do is focus on what's best for our country. What do we want to be doing? We want to be growing. We want people who are law-abiding, who pay taxes, people who are willing to assimilate and believe in the values of this country. And then what do we need? What do we need as a country? We can be picky. That's the beauty of our country. Everybody wants to be here. Nobody's taking the boat back to Cuba. No one's getting on a flight to China saying, I can't wait to get Chinese asylum or Chinese citizenship.
No one's taking the U-Haul back to California either.
No, they're not. Yeah, they're not. And in fact, it was funny because at the beginning, and I think we talked about this the first time that I was on your show.
Yeah.
You asked me the question that I was getting a lot, and I'm sure the governor got a lot, which was, hey, all these people are coming from the outside. Aren't you afraid that they're going to change your policies? And I said, no, because they're people like you.
Yeah.
In other words, people who are fleeing usually are not fleeing to implement the same policies that they fled. And so what you've seen from a registration perspective,
it's insane.
Is insane.
What is the breakdown now of Miami? Because most people know about the Florida breakdown. I think before DeSantis came in, it was I think 200,000 more Democrats, and now it's about 1 million more Republicans.
That's right. That's
something
right.
like that.
That's a 1.2 million delta.
Insane.
And in Miami-Dade County, we went the year before I was elected in 17. In 16, it was plus 30 for Democrats. I got reelected in 21, and in 22, with the policies that we've implemented, it's now plus 10 and 12 for Republicans. That's a 40-point swing.
Did you ever think that this place could become what it has become? I mean, before you were mayor, when you were thinking about becoming a mayor?
Cubans have been traditionally conservative. I think, ironically, the influx of Venezuelan and other Hispanics have actually made it more conservative. And then policies that work.
Yeah.
When you see the delta between the prosperity we've experienced here versus what's happened in other places, people they're smart. They get it. You know what I mean? And they understand, like, hey, we don't want to be dominated by government. We don't want to pay more in taxes than what we need to. We don't want a place that's lawless. That doesn't benefit us.
I had a friend come here a couple of weeks ago who lives in the suburbs of New York City, but works in New York City, or at least mostly worked in New York City before. Now everyone kind of works from home. But we went out to Coconut Grove, and he could not believe that there were no homeless people. He could not believe there were no drugs. He couldn't believe that the whole place didn't smell like weed. I mean, he was genuinely shocked, and that kind of tells you everything you need to know. What are we doing on the drug side? Because we don't see, I know there is a drug problem everywhere, but we don't see the fentanyl walk everywhere or any of that stuff. I don't see it.
I can tell you that, as mayor, the major issues always percolate up, right? I forget which president once said that if the issue hits my desk, it is an issue that no one else has been able to solve, right? By definition.
Right.
It's not an issue that's percolating up to me. Homicides, like we went the last 6 weeks without a homicide. The record is 8 weeks. Record, right?
Yeah.
So this year, this is in 24. So, when I don't hear about, and thank God I don't hear about an officer involved shooting, and I heard about one, unfortunately, not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago, but there usually are long stretches. I mean, these are good things, right? But there isn't I'm not getting calls like, hey, this is a drug haven, or this is not at all. So I think that's a testament to how we've developed. Right? It's a testament to the affordable housing that we have built, which gives people dignity and allows them to be in buildings that look like they're in Brickell in some of our underprivileged neighborhoods, but they have gyms inside of them, have community centers, have security. And then
how much of it also is, do you think that people are packing heat here. I mean, you don't know who's walking around with a gun, and that does kind of keep people a little more, not necessarily on the drug side, but it keeps people a little more like, I can't just get away with anything.
Yeah, look, I think, so my view of it is to say it another way, which is to say, we don't, and again, the nightmare of a mayor is these mass shootings and all this stuff. And I think the mass shootings come from, first and foremost, fundamentally loneliness, right? You know, whoever it is lonely. And they're not being paid attention to. So for example, one of the initiatives that we did, in Miami that I'm a big fan of is this fitness initiative for kids to be able to get CrossFit-like training for free. Why is that important? For 3 reasons. Number 1, they're in community, so they're not lonely. Number 2, they get the stimulation of natural feel-good chemicals when you work out, so you don't get addicted to opioids. And number 3, they get adversity training, right? What happens? Life is it's gonna be tough. And you're not learning in 2nd grade, like, hey, today's adversity class, we're going to dunk you in water until you can't breathe. And then, whatever. Right? It's not the way it works. Right. So you have to create your own adversity overcoming mechanisms. And part of what people do is they go to these classes and they learn, and look, the workouts are tough. People don't want to. So the point I'm trying to make is that, people talk about the gun issue, massive issue. But for us, we're focusing on making sure that they're employed, making sure that they understand how to deal with adversity, making sure that they're not lonely, and making sure that we're getting them, feel good chemicals so that they don't get addicted, so they don't do. So we're dealing with the root causes, right? The gun is an instrument, right? Just like a bus can be if you hijack it, or a knife can be if you use it. I mean, it's an instrument. Yep. You can push somebody, there's just, so these are all instruments, but you're not dealing with the cause, which is often mental health.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop screaming, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.